Hey mama, welcome to the One Income Family podcast. Are you sick of living paycheck to paycheck? Do you constantly search the internet for a way to dig yourself out of it? Are you ready for some consistency and those extra spending dollars? That is what you are going to find today. My number one way to budget that allows for consistent numbers in your paycheck and that wiggle room you have long been desiring. It doesn't matter how much income you bring in, this system will bring you some much needed and much deserved relief. So go cuddle up with a nice warm drink, get comfy with them babies, and open your heart to God as we head into today's episode. Do you find it hard to save or get out of debt? Are you constantly searching for ways to save money and live on a budget? Do you have big dreams only to be stopped by not sticking to your budget? Are you ready for financial freedom? Then you, mama, are in the right place. Welcome to the One Income Family podcast, where you will learn what it looks like to budget on one income, how to partner with God in your finances, how to budget in a way that's easy to stick to, and how to cut costs and save money, all so that you can start building wealth. It is my mission to equip you with these tools so that you can live in abundance regardless of the amount in your account. Hey, I'm Molly, a budget coach for stay-at-home moms, and I know what it's like to struggle on one income. I've lived paycheck to paycheck, relied on being frugal, and failed many budgets until I learned how to budget without tracking. This has allowed my family to pay off debt and build wealth all on one income. So, if you are ready for financial freedom, then go grab that stroller, plug in those headphones, and let's get to it. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to invite you to grab a budget audit. You, my dear friend, you're here listening to the podcast because you are struggling to stick to your budget. You're struggling while you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you are looking for a way out. You're ready to start reaching and achieving your goals, like paying off debt, saving money, and going on that vacation. You're eager to stop living paycheck to paycheck so you can live comfortably on one income with no restrictions, which is why I want to invite you to grab a budget audit. On a budget audit, you will find simple solutions to your budgeting problems without spending hours searching the internet or even my podcast. You'll walk away with an action plan of the steps you need to take to fix your budget and achieve your dreams. Take your first step towards financial peace today by booking a budget audit. All you have to do is send an email to mollybennell@gmail.com with the subject line budget audit. And let me help you end your paycheck to paycheck cycle that you're living in and embrace a life of abundance. Again, that email is mollybennell, so that's MOLLY, B as in boy, ENELL @gmail.com. Alrighty, so now it is time to dive into my number one way to live on less and save more, which, if you read the title, because I'm sure you did, is my base budgeting system. So base budgeting, it's just something that kind of happened in my budgeting. It's not something that I went searching for or was like, ooh, yeah, this is a great idea. It's just one day I woke up and I was doing it and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is actually a really good thing. It's a great way to set up my budget so that my first focus is saving. And that is what I'm so excited to share with you. So I am going to answer a few questions and that's how today's episode is going to be. So my first question, that I'm sure you're asking is, what is a base budget? Base budgeting is where you set up your budget on a base pay if you're getting consistent overtime or you're on a base percentage so that you are living on less than you make. That is the goal here, is to set up your budget where you're living on less than what you're actually bringing in, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to be like, oh, well, I've got all this overtime and I'm just going to throw it into the savings account and not put a name on it or anything. No, it just means that your basic month-to-month living expenses and maybe a little bit of savings are focused on in this base budget. So, for example, in my husband's last job, he was bringing in roughly $1,300 a paycheck every week due to overtime. But I had to search and dig and find the lowest amount that he would ever bring in, like if there was a sick day, if there was PTO days, if there was what was called a CC day where he could, like, they didn't have work for everybody, so he could choose to take the day off and not get paid. And so what I found was that if he wasn't getting overtime, his base pay was roughly around $1,100 a paycheck. So that is what I budgeted for. That is what my base income was that I stuck with for my base budget, right? A few jobs back, he wasn't getting a consistent, or he was getting a consistent $1,150 a paycheck, and that was every 2 weeks. So we went from like not making anything to making a lot. We like doubled our income when you change jobs, right? But anyways, what I did there, because it was a much smaller amount, and yeah, he was getting a little bit of overtime, but it wasn't enough to, consistently be going, okay, well, he's making a high overtime amount, so I can just use that as my overtime, right, for my savings. But that's not the case in this situation. He was making a rough, consistent amount of $1,150 every 2 weeks with just a small amount of overtime. So how I budgeted for this, how I found my income amount, was through a percentage. I decided that, and I can't exactly say I decided this because, like I said earlier, I just kind of happened into the system without actually thinking about it. And then as I sat down and looked at my systems, I'm like, oh, well, this is what I'm doing and this is how I can share it with you. So I was not actively thinking this, but what I did end up doing was I budgeted to live off of 80 to 90% of the income, since it was such a small amount, and use that other 10 to 20% as a cushion per se, that I would then put towards savings, giving, and paying off debt. Now, if you would like more information on how to calculate your base income, I have a full episode on that. You can go listen to episode 118, and that is how you will learn how to calculate your base income. So I'm not going to go into that today. I'm going to talk about the rest of the budget and how to set that up and what it looks like and everything. So that is just like a quick overview of what a base budget is and how you find your base income, right? Okay, so what is a base budget, or what is in a base budget? What you will see is you will find your base income. And this is like when you look at a typical budget, this is what you're going to see, right? So you'll see your base income. You'll see your giving amount. You'll see your variable spending, which you can also be called everyday expenses, right? That's an easier way of understanding it, because sometimes when you get into the budgeting or the money lingo, it can be a little bit difficult to understand. So variable spending is another way of thinking as your everyday expenses. So like your groceries, your spending, those kind of things. It's not the monthly things, which are your fixed expenses, which is the next one that you'll find. And those fixed expenses are your monthly bills and also your debts. The next thing you'll find are your yearly bill savings. And yes, I do split up my savings when I put this in here. On most people's budgets, you'll just see one big column of savings, but I split them up because there are some that are of higher priority. For instance, your yearly bills that need to be saved up for. And those can be things like insurance. Those can be things like propane if you don't use it on a monthly basis. Like me, I only use propane as a backup for my heater in the winter months. So I have to save up for that. There's also things like subscriptions, if you have monthly subscriptions, and those are things that you want to pay and make sure that you continue using them, right? But there are so many things that are considered yearly bills that you want to make sure are being saved up for, so that when the time comes, you're not scrounging around trying to find a way to pay for them, right? So they're kind of a form of what my next system is, which is sinking funds, but they're a higher priority, so I give them their own little section. The next thing you'll find, as I just mentioned, is your sinking funds, or you can also call them your savings buckets, so that you're saving up for things like maintenance and repairs on your car, on your house. You're saving up for your hobbies like gardening, for Christmas, for other things that you enjoy doing. You're saving up for your clothes so that you can actually go out and get some new clothes, right? If you homeschool for Christmas, there's multiple things that you could be doing, like maybe your personal care, like hair care and stuff like that. You can put those all into savings. Bulk buying is another thing that you could put there, right? There are so many things. I feel like I'm on repeat saying so many things, but you just have to figure out what your life is and what your sinking funds are. It can be so hard to figure out what these are because you want to do everything. I know when I finally had the ability to save up for sinking funds, I'm like, ooh, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this. And I couldn't save up for all of it, right? So I had to figure out what was a priority. And then the next thing that you will find, this is the last one, is the family savings. And what you will find in your family savings is your vacations. It's your family activities that, are a larger sum to do. It's toys. And when I say toys, I'm talking maybe for your kids, but I'm also talking for you, which could be, saving up for a new car. It could be saving up for a, why can't I think of what it's called? Four-wheeler. There we go. Four-wheeler or a side-by-side or boat. Those are just some things that I can think of that I know my husband would love. A camper. But that's where you would find those. And they're kind of at the end because they aren't going to really be able to fit in your base income, but it's still going to be important that you put them on there so that when the time comes, when you get that savings, that 10 to 20%, if you're having to do a percentage, or that however much of overtime, you know where to focus it on, right? You know the things you want to save up for. Okay, so how do you set up your base budget? The first thing, and this is what I always say to do, so I'm sure you know it by now, is to pray. And why I want you to pray first is not simply just because it's the right thing to do, but because by praying first, you are then opening your heart to God, to His direction. You're allowing Him to come inside of you, and you're going to be ready to listen for Him. Like you're actively listening for Him because you're like, okay, Lord, this is what I'm doing. This is what I need help for. This process, this budgeting system, like creating this base budget, can be extremely overwhelming, and you can easily listen to your selfish desires, instead of what truly needs to be done with your money. It's so easy in this process to fall prey to our selfish desires. So when you ask God to silence those desires, to give you a heart of love, a mind of Christ, so that you are doing what is right with your money, you are able to not do it reluctantly, but with a joyful heart. And that is what I want for you. I want you to be able to sit down, look at the facts, look at what you have, how much money you have, look at the things that you want to do. Like maybe before this, go brainstorm about the bills that you need to pay, your savings, your sinking funds that you want to focus on. Get all that stuff gathered up beforehand so that when you go and you are putting this into your base budget, you are able to do it with a a calm mind instead of one that's like, oh my gosh, I have to put this here, but I don't have enough money. You are able to get rid of that mindset just simply by saying, Lord, help me, guide me to what is right. Give me the direction. What is it that you want me to do with this money that's going to, further your kingdom, but also create a comfortable life that I'm not struggling in, that I'm not stressing over. And a comfortable life for you may be living on less than what my husband was making the second round, right? It may be the first round, and that's okay. But learning that contentment is a big thing. And that doesn't mean that you can't ever make more money if you're content in the life that you're currently in. It just means that you're not constantly in a negative attitude, like giving into fruits that are going to be taking away from you instead of fruits of the Spirit that are going to be like giving you joy and just pouring into you, making you happy, right? Those are the things that you really need to be able to focus on. And when you first sit down and you open your heart to God, that is what you allow yourself to do. Okay, I'll get off that rabbit trail, right? And move on to the next thing. But it's so important to pray first and to understand why you're praying first. And that it's not just something that you check off the list. It's not just like, a quick prayer here and there. It's deep. It's understanding. It's actually connecting with Him. Okay. The second thing that you're going to do is you're going to calculate your base income, which again, if you aren't positive on how to do that, I have another episode, 118, that explains how to find what your base income is. Then the third thing you're going to do is you're going to set up your bills system, which again, I'm not going to dive too deep into that because I have 2 episodes on that, episode 55 and episode 119, that explain how to set up your bills system. But it's essentially setting up your bills to where a consistent amount is coming out every single paycheck. The only time it changes is when you get a new bill that you're adding to it, or you have bills that are being taken away. That is the only time it changes. Otherwise, every single paycheck, you have maybe $1,000 coming out every single paycheck that goes into your bill account. And then you don't have to worry about that anymore, right? Like that is a consistent amount, which then makes it so much easier to be able to set up your base budget, because you're not questioning, well, this week I might only have $50 left over, or the next week I have $500 left over. You're not going, well, which one do I have to take it from? It's less of a question, and it's more certainty and consistency, because everything will be the same after you set up this base budget. Everything will come out the same every single time. The only difference will be that extra 10 to 20% or your overtime, whichever way you end up going, right? That is the only thing that you will have to sit down and put towards a certain account and make decisions on where it needs to go. There will be less decision making, which is why this is such a simple system once you get it set up. It is difficult and it is hard to set up because, again, we have so many dreams and desires and goals that we want to achieve, and picking a few and going towards them can be so hard at first, right? But this is going to help you make strong financial decisions because you're not questioning how much money you're going to have left over after each paycheck. You're going to know with certainty how much money you have every single paycheck and where every single dollar is going without wondering if a bill is going to affect it, right? So get your bills system set up. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to identify your variable spending, which are your needs first. And again, that is like your everyday expenses. So you're going to sit down and you're not going to fill out all of your variable spending, just your needs. You're going to go, what groceries or what do I need to put down for groceries? And you do need to go through your expenses that you've done if you don't know, if you don't have an idea It's better to look back at what you've done, even if it is a lot more than what you want to spend, and slowly start cutting back than to put a number that you want and then go and try to buy groceries on a lower number that you've never done. That's a drastic change that then becomes overwhelming and you just throw it to the wayward side, right? That is not something I want you to do. I want you to find out how much you're actually spending on groceries, on gas, on other transportation costs, and add it all up of what you are currently doing. And then if it's a goal that you want to start cutting that back, then do it, but do it slowly. Do not do it drastically, or it's going to be like quitting cold turkey. And when you quit cold turkey, it is extremely hard to stick to that, right? So give yourself grace when you see the numbers that you are actually spending and put that in there as to what it is, and then set a goal that you want to achieve and do it every month. Cut back a little bit more. If that's still too much, do it every 2 months, every 3 months, whatever feels comfortable to you. Slowly start cutting it back so that you're not stressed out and you're not overwhelmed. Okay. So then the next thing that I want you to do after you've figured out your needs, I want you to focus on giving. I know it can be so hard to give, especially when you are going, I only make $11.50 every 2 weeks. How am I supposed to give? A small amount is better than nothing. And again, it's about your heart posture. When we think about giving, we think about what we are losing, right? Instead, we need to think about what we are gaining. What are we doing to help others out? Maybe it's tithing to the church. Maybe it's giving to a team because they're doing a fundraiser for their sport or something like that. Maybe it's somebody is in need. They got into an accident and they need some money. Maybe it's you want to get into something even bigger and help with like, what's it called? I can't think of some of the bigger things because I usually focus on the more local things, but things like abortion or human trafficking or when there's hurricanes that come through and those bigger things that are impacts, right? You can choose what it is. You can decide, what do I feel like needs more money towards, right? Where can I make an impact? But then also turn to God and say, God, where do you want me to put? Maybe it's only $5. Maybe all you have room for is to give $5 every paycheck. But guess what? $5 can make a big change in someone's life, even if you don't know it, right? Okay, so then focus on your giving next. After that, I want you to identify what your yearly bills and expenses are that are a must, right? And break it down per month so that you can start saving for it. So this is where you are figuring out your expenses, right? So those insurances, if you're doing every 6 months or every year, those saving up for taxes, maybe that's something that you have to do. Maybe you have land taxes because your house is paid off. Maybe you do income taxes because you get a 1099, those kind of things, right? Those are the things that you need to save up for. What I put in there, like I said, is propane. I also put in my meats that I get because I buy a quarter of a cow and I buy a half of a hog every single year, and that is where I store that money because it is a bill. It's something that I have to save up for because I have signed a contract to get that meat, right? And if I don't do that, if I don't save up for it, I will be breaking my contract, and that's not something that I want to do. So that is in my yearly expenses. So there are lots of things. Maybe you want to put your homeschooling there so that you make sure that you get it paid for. But that's what needs to go there, is the things that are a must. They are something that have to be paid for, or just like your monthly bills, you're going to have a consequence, right? There's going to be something negative to come out of it. So then the next thing that you're going to look into is identifying and adding in your personal spending amounts. And yes, I'm jumping around from all these categories in certain areas to certain areas, and then we go back, right? But in this area, this is back into your everyday expenses. But I want you to add in personal spending so that you don't feel restricted, right? Look at what you're currently spending again and cut back if your spending is too much, or add more if you don't give yourself any fun money, because that, again, it leads to resentment and to restriction and to feeling like you aren't in control of your money because you can't do anything fun, right? Now, if you're like I was at the beginning of our journey, there wasn't any room for fun money, in which case it's time to get creative. Find a way to do the same things that you would normally do that are going to allow yourself to be content, right, without spending money. There are many things that you can do that are fun, that are joyful, that bring joy to your life and your family's life, and it doesn't cost money. So identify your priorities and allow yourself to be content at where you're at, but still dream of more without letting comparison and jealousy, resentment, and all of those negative feelings shape your life. Be mindful of those things, of those feelings that come up, that arise, so that money doesn't become an idol, right? It's not something that you want to have to deal with. Money being an idol is not like a good thing, right? It feels like restrictive. It feels, again, just all those negative feelings, like you can't do what you want with your money. And sometimes when you sit down and you think about a budget, it feels like you are tied to it, like you have to do what it says in order to, quote, stick to your finances, right? Stick to your budget. And that's not what I am trying to get here. I want you to see that by setting up this base budget, you are putting freedom into your spending, because not only are you putting what your basic things are, the base things, your base needs, not only are they getting taken care of, but you're also able to dream. You're also able to achieve what those goals are, because you first have set up your budget to be able to save. You're not probably going to be able to put a whole lot of your savings goals into your base budget, like especially if you're on a lower income. That's not going to be something that you're going to be able to see. But that is just because you have set it up for rainy days, essentially, for the days that you aren't bringing in a whole lot of income, that you have a day off, that you don't have the income that you normally would every single paycheck, so that you are still able to take care of your bills. This is simply a way to keep you from putting too much income into bills, into monthly expenses and debts, so that you are able to save, so that you are able to achieve those goals, get rid of debt, go on those vacations, save up for future things like Christmas, hobbies, kids, clothes, all those kind of things. This is just a way to be able to see what you want to do, but also be realistic in those days that maybe you have a day off again, like I said, or you don't get that overtime that maybe you normally would. And that is why this is here. It's not to make you feel like, oh, but I've got all this other money. Why can't I plan for it? You will plan for it in what I call my paycheck planning days, but you don't want to plan for that in your base budget, because when you do, then you feel like you have to make every single amount, right? But then you also feel like you have more money than maybe you actually want to be spending. And you do put it towards debt. You do put it into monthly subscriptions and other bills. Maybe you get a higher phone plan or internet plan because you're like, oh, I've got the money. But then at the end of the day, you have nothing left to save for, right? And that is what this system prevents. It focuses first on that savings so that then you can put money into savings. It just won't be budgeted for at the beginning of the paycheck. You just have to go back in and put the remaining towards what your priorities are. And that's a big thing when you figure out what your sinking funds are, what your savings are, and you know what the priority is. Like, put it in a list. Say this one first, this one second, this one third, this one fourth, right? However many goals you have, make a list and prioritize them, number them, so that when you sit down to put that money that is remaining, in which I put in air quotes, towards a goal, you are achieving them in the order in which you want to achieve them, right? It's not just oh, well, should I put it here today? Should I put it there today? No, you sit down, you say, okay, this is going here, this is going here, this is going here. Takes 5 minutes, simple, easy, you're done, right? It's not something that you have to be questioning and trying to recreate the wheel every single time you sit down to budget. That is the beauty of this system. Now, I kind of jumped away from how to set it up, but the next thing after you figured out your personal spending amounts, then you start to dream, to identify your sinking funds, your savings buckets, and your family goals, and to prioritize them, like I said, so that you know what you want to focus on first. Okay, so that was a lot right there. But if this is something that you would like to do, this is what I do. I can help you set this system up real simple, real easily. And yeah, it can be stressful and overwhelming, but when you have somebody doing it alongside you that's done it before, that has the ideas of like how you could do it, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to say you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. No, this is your budget. It's customizable to you and your family and how you want to live. And then you can take it home to your husband and you can say, hey, this is what we kind of figured out. Is there any changes you'd like to make? Do you like it? Like, sometimes he wants to be involved. Sometimes he's like, my husband just looks over it and calls it good because he doesn't want to do it, right? But it's still good to involve him, to make him feel like he is able to make a decision. Say, no, I don't like that. Can we change it? Can we do something different here? And then you two work together to figure out what does work, right? For both of you, so that one person doesn't feel good and then the other person is like, okay, yeah, I don't want to do this, but she did all that work, so I guess I'll do it. It causes, again, resentment, restriction. It causes just so many negative feelings and it can hurt your relationship. So that is why it is so important to have an open communication about your budget. And if he knows what's going on, if he knows where money is going, he is going to feel as in control as you are and have the ability to say, no, I don't like that. It's not working. We need to make a change, kind of thing, right? When you feel like you have a say, there's less tension, there's less anger, there's less frustration. It's so much easier to sit down and say, okay, well, this part isn't working. What can we do? How can we make this change, right? Okay, so like I was saying, this is what I do. This is how I can help you. And if this is something that you would like to look more into, of setting up your own budget, your own base budget, so that you are focused first on savings and then towards your expenses and your monthly bills, right? Then hop on a budget audit. Like, shoot me an email, say budget audit in the, subject line, and send me an email. Let me know that this is something that you would like to learn more about. Say, hey, I just listened to your episode on setting up a base budget and I'd really like to do this. Like, what will it take? And then we'll hop on a budget audit. We'll talk about where you're currently at and what it would take to get to this position to set this budget up so that you can succeed, so that you can take it and you can customize it to what it is that you need, and you can run with it. And the great thing is that I have a spreadsheet that you just have to plug in all the numbers, right? You don't have to recreate the spreadsheet. You don't have to go, okay, well, how do I do this? Instead, you just say, you look at it, you say, okay, so we go here first, here second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, all the way through the steps, and then you have it set up. Simple as that, right? Okay, so again, if this is something that you would like to learn more about, then shoot me an email, put budget audit in the subject line, and let's talk about what it would take to get you from where you're currently at to having your own base budget set up and flying through it, right? Okay, so with that being said, I will see you right back here next week on another episode of the One Income Family Podcast. Before you go, I hope this episode has ignited a fire inside of you, and I pray that it creates long-lasting impact. Did you know that you too can impact other one-income families? All you have to do is leave a written review, and you help get the podcast in the hands of other mamas in need. You can also text this episode to that friend who is also knee-deep in the same kind of chaos as you and inspire them to make a change. Also, your review lets me know that you're enjoying the show, and that lights me up. I get so excited to hear from you. Another great way that we can connect, though, is through the One Income Family community over on Facebook. So after you're done leaving that 5-star review, head on over to the community where you will find other mamas working their way out of the chaos. You can ask your questions and connect with others who truly understand what you are going through. I cannot wait to connect with you in the community. Until then, I will see you right here next week on another episode of the One Income Family Podcast.